Strong suit.
Yes, it is.
No,
You're the best.
No, I'm very weak at this.
No, you're very good.
No, I'm telling you. I don't know. I can't speak for yourself, but I suck doing this. That's for sure.
The Shaskin Pub is happy to be a sponsor in WMNH. Our location is 909 Elm Street. The Shaskin Pub is open 7 days a week from 11:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. and offers the best food and drinks in downtown Manchester.
This hour on WMNH is proudly sponsored by CGI Business Solutions, located at 171 Londonderry Turnpike in Hooksett. Serving all your employee benefits planning, design and administration, investment and wealth management, and customized business insurance solutions. They are available at 866-841-4600 or on the web at cgibusinesssolutions.com.
You are listening to WMNH-LP, Manchester's radio, broadcasting at 95.3 megahertz frequency modulation from the top of 1000 Elm Street. Our studios are located at 1045 Elm Street and licensed to Manchester Public Television Service in Manchester, New Hampshire, USA. Contact us by email at WMNH953@gmail.com or through our website at WMNHradio.org.
Which is why Hotel Transylvania 3 was a false flag by the Canadian Yakuza, the Yamusa, to bottle the laughter of children and use it as a disinfectant to sell to deep state Illuminati with yeast infections. Well, all right, listen up, Brain Fight Nation, the Brain Fighters, the Brain Nation, the Skull Meat. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the martyrdom of old Tuck Buckford at the hands of Silicon Valley snowboys and soy flakes. I've been kicked off of YouTube, Apple, Facebook, Flickster, Vidbox, eBombs World, Hellhub, Butt Speech, and FreeGoldenCasino.Somalia. But I'm still broadcasting from a nation's last bastion of free speech, the in-house web player on the homepage for Haterade, the knockoff sports drink for athletic Klansmen, okay? This is the only cream-based sports drink for sale on the dark web. Haterade, win the race and the race war, all right? Now it's a slippery slope. If they can deplatform Tuck Buckford, next thing you know, they'll be coming after me for so-called child support, which I owe to my ex-wife, who I miss desperately. President Trump, I need you to do the right thing, all right? Help Tuck. Venmo me $50 or China will win the midterms, all right? You must feed the gladiator. You must nourish the Viking, chew up the food and spit it into the mouth of the Pirate King. Be sure to sign up for my new platform, Brain Fight Hive Mind, okay? My exclusive service where I personally scream my message into a swarm of angry bees. The bees will then be released to sting my words directly into your bloodstream, okay? There is nothing Podesta-funded global conspiracy wants more than to control these little bee butts, okay? All right? These sweet little, sharp little stinging bee butts. It's all part of their anal sweetening agenda, okay? I call it Beatsagate, and it is real, ladies and gentlemen, okay? It's already starting. The bees have distilled my words into some sugary sort of bee goo, okay, which I use as a shield to keep the squid men who run the Saudi government from accessing my thoughts. Look at that. Look, I'm covered right now in righteous truth, and the bees know me as their master, okay? They sense my pheromones, which I excrete through my skull. Come to me, bees. Serve your master. Oh, God. Oh, God. One flew my mouth. Oh, God. Obama's gotten to them. Damn it, I gotta ward off the bees with my cream-based sports beverage. Oh, God. No, it's hydrating them, and they're more powerful than ever. God, help me. It's message brought to you by Squarespace. Not the website company. I'm talking about the perfect soundproof cube for you to sit inside and scream until your throat bleeds. They're back! They're back! Help! Help!
You're really a special guy.
Welcome. It's Matt Connarton, Unleashed in the Afternoon. We are live on WMNH 95.3 FM, emanating from downtown Manchester, New Hampshire, streaming at WMNHradio.org. Of course, on Channel 97 Comcast, and on Facebook Live on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. Please like the page if you haven't done so already. Of course, you can say anything you like on the in the chat on the page. And, of course, you can also call us, 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. Jenny is here with us. Whoops, I didn't bring your mics up. I'm sorry. Say that again.
Hi.
And in the orange
Who
is,
are you today?
Yeah, who are you today?
John.
Just John.
Just John.
All right.
How's that little VD issue you were having there?
Cured, surprisingly.
Oh, congratulations. Try not to do that again, you know.
Well, I try to abstain from intercourse with beings from the seventh dimension, but, you know, sometimes up on the fourth floor, things happen.
Okay.
Oh. Hello to Ed Murphy, who joins us in the Facebook live chat, as well as Ben Dion, host of the weekly Dion, Thursdays at 6 p.m. right here on WMNH. Hello to Alex O'Connor, who seemed to enjoy that opening segment. Alex, of course, is from the band It's Been Real. And that was, by the way, that was Stephen Colbert and his character. I always have to be careful how I say this on the air, make sure I say this right. Tuck Buckford, his satire of Alex Jones,
that was
which
awesome.
I enjoy
Did you see
tremendously.
more people pull him off?
Oh, yeah.
Like everybody, every social media outlet out there is pulling him off.
Oh, yeah. Poor Alex. How's he going to fight the globalists?
Is it because of you think of liability issues that he's opened himself to lawsuits that they could
Have
get?
you ever listened to him?
No. I never really
Just do
knew
it
of him
once
until
and you'll understand.
Matt.
Just listen to him once, you'll get it.
Well, Matt's played some of the stuff and put himself in the hospital doing so.
He's insane.
Yes.
Yeah, but some of the stuff's really bizarre.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I wanted to mention, by the way, so I had posted this on Facebook, but I hadn't yet mentioned it on the show. If you go to ohmtimes.com, and that's ohm as in O-M, ohmtimes.com. Yes.
No, this is really cool.
You can find the new issue, the August 2018 issue of Ohm Times magazine. And the cover story is an interview with Tom Palladino, who's the innovator of something called scalar energy healing. And the interviewer in the article is yours truly. And I actually didn't know they were going to publish it as the cover story in the magazine, my interview with Tom.
It's literally the cover.
Yes. So if you go to ohmtimes.com, you'll see it. You can click it, read it, enjoy it. But it's me interviewing Tom Palladino. So thank you to Ohm Times.
Woo-woo!
And
Yeah!
thank you to Tom Palladino. And
Matt
very cool.
or Compton.
Connor
Connarton. Compton.
I see they've repossessed John Clayton's PC.
I noticed that, yes.
Well, they were having a little discussion about what his last name should be this morning on Pete and the Moose were having a discussion.
I thought, it was
I
Matt
think
Covington.
They renamed him Compton.
There you go.
Yeah.
And they were harassing Joel's speechwriter, who's none other than yours truly, and about the log rolling, which is unfair because if you've ever been over to Shea Elber and you see the big blue steer, Paul Bunyan's friend that he and his first wife Was her name Jebediah or something?
I'm playing a violin for you.
Had the sons Joel 1 and 2 by her. They got it from that restaurant, Minnesota. Joel's up on this big blue steer, like Yahoo with his Gunsmoke underwear and his Bonanza hat. And you think, this is real BS. But then you realize, Babe was a blue ox, not a steer.
Well, I have to say, there was something that Matt and I did hear
about lumberjacks
on the morning show that did
Log
get
roll?
us both a little upset.
Log roll? Oh,
yes.
Something they said?
I'm not upset so much as feeling left out and abandoned in a way.
By the way, hello to Terry Ballantyne, who joins us in the Facebook live chat.
Well, Matt's always been upfront about his lumberjack fetish.
That's right. Of course.
It's not about lumberjacks.
No, we were disappointed
paraphilia?
Listening to the morning show. Glenn R.J. Willett, the People's Mayor,
yes,
was here with us the other day and left out some things that I would think he would want to share on this show. One of them that he's getting married, which I didn't know. I don't know why he didn't bother to mention it to us here.
Yeah.
And I'm a justice of the peace.
That's right. You could
didn't even think to ask for me to officiate.
You could perform the ceremony.
In
I'm
Dubai?
not even invited. Never mind perform it. I mean, geez.
I don't know if women are allowed to marry people in Dubai. That's a good point.
Probably not.
But the other thing that really disappointed me. So this is a political show. And Glenn sat here in this room on this show and never bothered to mention that he's moving to Africa and running for mayor of Africa.
No kidding.
And
I know, right?
I think that's a very big deal.
So he's getting married, and he's moving, and he's running for mayor of Africa, and he sat here and he said nothing.
Now, we want it for clarity's sake. He's running for emirate.
Well, that's not what they were saying on the morning show.
No.
They said he's running for mayor of Africa. He's going to be the people's mayor of Africa.
I thought it was emirate.
Which is a big
people's
deal.
emirate.
No, not at all.
So
I didn't know they had mayors in Africa.
I didn't either, but apparently he's gonna run for it.
He's going to be the mayor
He's
of the
gonna
whole
move and everything.
of the continent of Africa. It's very exciting.
I thought an emirate was chosen by whatever.
I don't know.
Do you know?
We didn't even know the guy was getting married. I mean, what do you want from me?
I think it might be an appointed position.
Do you know a mullah is chosen by the people?
Oh.
And that's no Babe the Blue Ox. You know?
Well, I was doing some research, and apparently the mayor of Africa is chosen by the UN.
Oh.
So he'll be appointed.
Which part of the UN? The good part or the bad part?
The Africa part.
I thought it was the bad part.
The
bad part is
the Africa Committee.
Oh, I thought only the U.S. in the UN was the good part.
He misses.
Well, we're the best part, obviously.
He misses the rain in Africa.
Favorite part.
He's going there to bless the rain down in Africa.
So he can get more.
And adopt children and be the mayor.
So he's
very
going,
exciting.
He's going to sub-Sahara.
And get married to whom we don't know.
I mean,
and by whom we don't know.
Right.
By being, one of the,
He is bipedal.
I'm up there
sort
yesterday.
of. He uses a cane, but.
Wouldn't that make him tripedal?
Oh, my.
He had the picture of Dubai University.
Yes.
So you sure it's not Dubai? Dubai is in the Middle East, right?
Dubai is in.
It's not in Africa.
Is it near India, isn't it? No, Saudi Arabia.
Isn't it
no,
near,
wait, Africa.
Isn't it north of Saudi
no, wait,
Arabia?
Asia? No, wait.
I have no idea. Is it in Africa? How did Glenn suddenly go to Africa?
we have a call. Perhaps this is Glenn R.J. Willett calling to make his official announcement for his candidacy
and invite us.
Mayor of Africa. Hello, caller. Who's on the air?
Connarton. He's on the scene. He's meaner than nice, but nicer than mean.
You wrote me a song, Dave Ridley? Oh, my goodness.
I love it.
Something like that.
Connarton.
First, I need to your volume. I can barely hear you. I'm sorry. Turning up. Okay, how's this? Well, I must be asking myself that, shouldn't I?
We can hear you.
You sounded very nice.
I can hear me. Now I can just barely hear. Okay, now I think I can hear you better.
You can hear us?
Now I can hear you good. Sorry.
We can hear you as well. We can hear your dulcet tones. And thank you for the song. Connarton was not one of the mispronunciations chosen on the morning show this morning, but
no, they kind of avoided anything that had an A involved.
That's right. I had a friend in high school who called me Connarton.
Connarton.
You're allowed to
Yes.
You're allowed to mispronounce a song. You're now allowed to mispronounce a name if it's in a song.
Oh.
Mm.
Ah.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
A little artistic license. By the way, Dave Ridley, were you aware that Glenn R.J. Willett, the people's mayor, is running for mayor of Africa?
Or M.
Ouellette. Oh, brother. Yeah, bad. Russ Ouellette?
No. Glenn R.J. Willett.
He's running for all the men of Ward 11. I guess.
Okay.
Oh. Yeah.
No, I wasn't clear.
Are you jealous? Wouldn't you love to be the mayor of Africa?
I guess I could live with that. You know, I mean, we all want power, don't we?
Yes.
Maybe you could start Africa Exit.
The whole it leaves the whole continent of Africa.
Oh my
which
goodness!
There's a conundrum for you. Right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help it.
I don't know if that's feasible technologically. I mean, can we remove a continent from Earth and maybe what would we put it on Mars or something?
Well, if we could put it on Earth's own dome on the flat Earth.
Well, that's true.
You know, Dave could be a valuable advisor for Glenn Exit because Glenn is indeed
Glenn
leading
Exit.
Manchester and
That's
New
true.
Hampshire.
That's true. Yes, Dave, you could advise Glenn R.J. Willett.
On Exit.
All right.
All right, it's a deal.
Dave, have you ever heard of a woman named Gilletta Jarvis?
Yes, actually, I think if you wait long enough, you'll hear me call this. You'll hear me call her show and mention something or another that she's doing. She's actually doing a couple of things that are on my list to call talk radio about. She's interesting.
She's going to be on Matt's show Friday at 4:30. The Libertarian. She's running for governor.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, ultimately, a lot of libertarian candidates kind of let you down if you're a pure libertarian like me, or a pure. I guess I would be considered actually a pure anti-aggressionist. But so far, she has kind of impressed me. But I wasn't calling about her today. I was actually calling about a controversy in Bedford.
A controversy in Bedford, or as they say on the BBC, controversy. What is the controversy in Bedford, Dave Ridley?
Excuse me.
Are you familiar with a place called it's a dog grooming place on Wallace Road called Hollywood Hounds?
Hollywood Hounds. I love the name, but I'm not familiar with it. Are you guys familiar?
No.
No.
Apparently, the town of Bedford is giving them some sort of hassle. It sounds like, at least from walking past that location a few times, I'm trying to remember it. I feel like that's kind of maybe it's in a residential area or something. Maybe they were granted a variance of
Wallace
some kind
Road
in order to do their dog grooming or whatnot. But I guess there's some question as to whether they'll be allowed to continue. And so there's a petition up at iPetitions.com, and their customers have come out of the woodwork to fight the town of Bedford. And ask that they be allowed to continue in business. And I guess it already has 300 signatures.
That's great. It's great when you hear people standing up especially for a small business owner. It's so hard to be a small business owner in today's society. And quite frankly, I find that disgusting that they're trying to basically kill their business they've spent all this time building and having. It's kind of refreshing to hear that you've got over 300 signatures already.
Yeah, I like what Tim Draper, the Bitcoin billionaire, is always saying. You know, when you're a successful business, you're a target. You have to reach the point of being like a super big business before you can really stop the authorities.
Yeah, that's true.
So small businesses fall through the cracks, you know, because, they're successful, but they're small enough to be eaten. So, and that's exactly what the government does. You think the government's going to, you think the government's going to come after Google? You think they're going to come after YouTube or something like that? No, because those are massive. They're more like the institutions that run the government, right?
Although we do have Trump going after Amazon because Jeff Bezos hurts his feelings.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well,
at least
hopefully what will happen, again, this is the great thing. I mean, I don't like Trump. I'm one of the one of the people who can raise his hand if you're in an audience and you ask, were you ever kicked out of a Trump rally? I'm one of the people who can raise my hand, right?
I wasn't allowed in one.
I was
allowed
wait a
in
minute,
one.
Dave. I think Hoppy's got you beat.
I arrived at a Trump rally. I was credited. Was it Yahoo I was with or another? And the people from the Guardian, who Trump was feuding with, They just sent some kids instead of like, a venerable reporter. And we all arrived together, and I used a venerable reporter for the Associated Press. Must be about 70 now. We all arrived together, and they kick us. They won't let us in.
Yeah.
And we got the credentials that you don't show them or anything, but you have a paper and stuff.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Because we arrived with them, they're throwing them out.
Right.
They wouldn't let us in. Now that I'm with you guys, you realize because we were witnessed it or something. But the guy from the AP was, oh my God, this is horrible. Because then we went around the back and they still wouldn't let us in. And so I wrote a story about that, but he wanted to get in there because he's running for the Associated Press. He needs that story, not a story about how we all got kicked out.
So we got the one who never got let in, and we got the one that got kicked out. That's pretty good.
Dave, I know you've told this story before, but I don't remember it. And of course, for newer listeners who haven't heard it, can you tell us again what exactly happened when you got kicked out? Because you're right, not many people can say that.
Well, it was not all that dramatic, and it's funny, the video of it that I got video of it. It really didn't get that many hits, but this would have been September of 2016. I attempted to attend one of his rallies at Bedford. It was at a private facility, a big sports facility of some kind. It was going to be indoors. I lasted I got there really early, so early the Secret Service came and talked to me just because I was there. No one else had gotten there so early. But I just knew that if I waited too long, I don't know, you're not going to miss anything if you get there early, right?
Right.
So anyway, I lasted for about an hour and a half after I was on the property. But once they got to the point where we were about 2 hours away from him speaking, someone narked on me. That's a nasty reporter. He asks nasty questions. Can we have the police kick him out? And I was just standing in the parking lot at that point. And so the Bedford police came over to me, and they knew who I was too. But they told me the property owner wanted me out. I don't know if that's really what it means. I don't know if that was really true. They may have thought that was true. It may have been just an official of, maybe a Republican official of some kind. Walking past and seeing me, there were many that did do that, and they all know who I am. So
yeah,
or most of them probably do. But it wasn't that dramatic, and they were within their rights technically to do that.
Oh sure,
because it was private property, But what I was trying to say with Trump is just he's such a disruptive force that he's causing a lot of infighting in the government, and we need more of that, not less. And the infighting in the government means that one branch of government will try to shut down Google, and another part of the government is going to try to save Google. So I don't know if they'll ever really target Google, but you will see fights that break out. I would hope that there will be a fight between the Trump faction and the liberal faction. Well, Trump is kind of a liberal in my mind, but between the Trumpers and the Democrats, hopefully there will be a fight over whether. Or maybe over, whether, I don't know, hopefully there'll be all kinds of peaceful fights going on in the government, so they're just busy and they can't take down a bunch of corporations and they can't take down a bunch of people.
Dave, you made a comment. Can you, and you're not the only one I've heard say this, but can you expand on one thing that you said? When you said in your mind Trump is kind of a liberal, what do you mean by that?
Well, liberals are people that support certain gun laws. They're people who support, what was the other liberal thing that he supported lately? I'm trying to remember.
He supports family leave. I know that.
If you think about it, there's a certain amount of welfare spending that went on under the Obama administration. I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be higher under Trump. I don't know.
But
people always they think, oh, Jimmy Carter was a liberal. Well, look how much more money George Bush II spent on on welfare compared to Jimmy Carter. Well, spending on welfare, that's a liberal thing, right?
In theory, yeah.
I got a question for you, Dave, from the libertarian perspective. It's always been a libertarian platform to support free market industry where people are really, the businesses are succeeding because people are going there, and the businesses that are failing are the ones that aren't getting the clientele. That being the premise of a free market. But now we're seeing asbestos being put back into products and brought back into the public domain. I was reading a news article about that because the rollbacks on government controls. Do you think there's a limit to where those rollbacks should go, or are you cool with them rolling everything back and letting asbestos back and things like that.
There are real problems that happen that need real solutions, and obviously asbestos must be one of those. Either it was overused in the past, or maybe it's being overused now. Whatever problem you've got, do something about it. But don't expect the government to do it for you.
So you're in favor of the government lifting the ban on asbestos products coming into the U.S.?
Yeah, because I think there's
I'm in favor of the government lifting the ban on everything that is illegal and ceasing to exist. That would work for me.
Wow.
That's pretty far.
Well, Dave is a true libertarian.
Yeah, but I kind of cut the cord when you're talking about asbestos and when you're talking about lead-painted toys for children.
Plastic in the wells.
They're cutting corners, and we put a stop to that stuff coming in, and now it's going to start coming back into our country, and we know for a fact through science that it makes our children sick, and in some cases permanently sick for the rest of their lives, affecting their ability to think and to reason.
Yeah,
I think having those laws that say you can't send that
like
here
abortion is bad.
is important.
Just like abortion is bad for kids, so you shouldn't have an abortion.
Okay, now you're just trying to throw red herrings. We're talking about the product changes.
The same principle applies.
No, it doesn't. No,
it doesn't. We're talking about the laws that have been changed recently that have lifted bans on products that we know have and do cause illnesses, including cancer, and was very prevalent in young children to a point where some states made it illegal for landlords to rent apartments to children, to families that had young children, because the asbestos in the paint was that dangerous to them. We've had recalls on Chinese toys that turn out that their paint has lead in it, and these kids are eating lead.
Then don't buy the lead.
How do you know it's in there?
Don't rent a lead house.
How do you know it's in there when it's not on the label?
You know, Dave, she's totally right. Your position's, I won't use a word, but I sat in on depositions on a pharmaceutical company from India, and what went on is outrageous, the adulteration of the product. Now, this idea that you can't, you just don't buy it. Well, most drugs no longer will even have on the box where the origin is, because they just aren't going to do it. There's no requirement.
We don't know if what you're buying is got. Some people are very much against things that have been altered by science.
GMOs.
GMOs, but there's no label on there that says it's got a GMO or not. You might find something that says it's not a GMO, but the government refused to allow labeling. So in that case, how do you know?
By the way, CBS News is reporting, and this was a story from yesterday. That's how recent this was, that asbestos traces of it are being found in a particular brand of crayons. Play school crayons.
And kids eat crayons.
And that's exactly why I raised that issue. Shouldn't there, I get free market. I get free market. I support free market ideals. But I do think there's a limit. If you don't have some kind of controls on things that can kill people, and they're not labeled and people don't know, it's wrong. You're knowingly allowing death to come through the door, and you don't care because money's more important. That's basically what it's saying.
The limit should be placed by solutions. So there are certain solutions that can be imposed on these companies that don't require the use of tax dollars.
No,
for example,
no. Wait a minute. We had that without tax dollars. It simply said you couldn't ship that. You can't ship lead-based paints and asbestos products into the U.S. That was literally just the law. So you couldn't send it here.
That's right, like 20 years ago.
That was the way the law was. Yeah. So now they've lifted that, and those products are being allowed back. And as Matt just mentioned, an article he just read, that just came out yesterday, it said it's in crayons. I don't know how many children you've ever seen put a crayon in your mouth.
Well, honey, we used to call them the crayons.
But there's also another product, I believe some walling material coming from China that has asbestos now being put back into it.
Well, the reason
Paint on toys.
the reason this is relevant.
Can I respond?
Let me just.
But you've already had your say.
Wait,
so.
wait,
No,
wait,
we're
wait,
gonna
slow down.
we're gonna let Dave respond in a second because I want him to. But I just want to interject. The reason this is relevant right now, asbestos specifically, and it's in the news, is because the EPA apparently under Trump is deciding they may allow some asbestos to come back in. So they're looking at loosening up the rules.
Mesothelioma, is that it? So we'll have that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. So if there is a problem, then if there's a market problem, that is an opportunity for someone to come up with a technological solution for that problem. So, for example, I don't know exactly what the market will come up with because it's smarter than me. But one option would be an expansion of the sort of underwriter's laboratory protocol.
I'd rather use
right now.
How
right
they're
now
broad.
you can. If you can, I finish. Can I finish?
Go ahead, Dave.
How they're broad.
If you want to know, how a product is rated by Underwriters Laboratory, you can at least Google it, and that's a start. But there may be ways to expand that so that it's easier, like when you walk up to a product, where it makes it easy for you to just look, take a picture of the product or scan it or something like that, and then immediately get the Google information on your phone while you're shopping as to what's in there and how it's perceived by the public.
You honestly
and what
believe
the science
that
says
parents
about
are
it.
going to have the
You get all that
ability to
information
Google
while you're at
every
the store
product?
if you want to.
Dave, I'd like.
As long as the market is allowed to do that.
But the market isn't going to do that. Dave, I'm going to tell three things, and you'll pass it off to them. Number one, social welfare programs, as we know them, are a conservative project from the Iron Chancellor Bismarck in Germany to create social cohesion. Two, when people are affected by this with brain damage, whatever, are you going to pick up the medical bills for them, or are they just going to be thrown into the gutter like old days? And three, I just want to say something.
Wait. Yeah, let me give you the perfect example, Dave. The excuse that is used to implement a mandatory helmet law in the state of New Hampshire is people getting brain damage from accidents and becoming a tax burden.
And it does. Yeah.
So that is the societal solution to tax burdened people who end up with brain injuries from motorcycle accidents. How do you feel about that?
That's one reason why you don't use the government, or at least not tax money.
So what happens to the kids?
To fix people who have accidents, because then you start looking at everyone. You start looking at everyone, and they might have an accident. So we need to put new controls on them.
But you see, that's free will, getting on a motorcycle and putting on a helmet. Mm-hmm. But a child with a toy, or me taking a drug that's been adulterated. Now, this is the final thing I'm going to say, and this is demonstrable fact. When we were talking about GMO, we were talking about the bovine somatropin, which is BST, which is put in a cow, a hormone, to increase the milk production. Now, that's banned in Japan, Canada, all the EU, but in the United States. Now, this is what happened. The FDA in the United States, and this is like around 1999, so, Clinton's president, but, it's a process that goes through both Republican or Democrat. FDA approves it. Simultaneously, in Canada, the Canadian FDA is approving it. And they found out this. Monsanto had bribed the Canadian FDA officials because they had the research that it was carcinogenic. That was a huge scandal in Canada because Canadians are like, oh, we're so much better than the Americans.
I want to say something important about what you said.
When you bribe something, that distorts information, free markets. The free press is on its
more importantly,
death spiral.
More importantly, if you are a man or a woman who has gotten breast cancer and you are ERPR positive breast cancer in your testing, which means estrogen and progesterone positive, if you're ingesting milk and cheese and chicken and beef and things like that have been treated with hormones, they put you on medication to keep your hormone production down. So when you start ingesting those things, you're increasing hormone production. You're increasing a risk of a reoccurrence of your cancer. A lot of cancer survivors avoid those things like the plague for obvious reasons to avoid that. Now, if we don't know it's in there, how do we avoid it?
Yeah.
How do I know?
The problems you're all listing right now are legitimate, real problems, but they exist in a world. They exist under a federal government that has a list over 200,000 pages long of things you're not allowed to make or do, or places you're not allowed to go. It's the heavy regulation that is causing most of these problems. It's not the lack of regulation.
And people
we have more regulation. We have more regulation than Romania's Ceausescu.
Well, and people left to their own devices when it comes to medicinal marijuana are believing everything that everybody's putting out there instead of investigating it. And if you did some investigation, you actually find out that CBD products that are being pushed on cancer patients can actually be an absolutely deadly mix, because CBD contains the same enzyme in it as grapefruit. And grapefruit is an enzyme that destroys the body's ability to absorb medications like tamoxifen, which are administered to prevent a reoccurrence of the cancer.
Hello to Kristen Connarton, who joins us in the Facebook Live chat, by the way.
Here's a perfect example of people left to their own devices not being educated properly, and you've got people out there that are taking CBD with their tamoxifen, and they're reducing at least by 50% the effectiveness of the medication that they're taking. And they think they're safe because society says so.
I mean, personally,
that's what we have when we have government making decisions about these kinds of things. It can't be relied on. It's just like the wildlife preserve in Alaska, where they were going to allow a pipeline in. Well, why were they going to allow a pipeline in? It was because it was the government. The government doesn't care about the land. A private, when you turn something over to the government that's important, like environment and health, you get these kinds of results, Jen.
I think the reality, I mean, this is my personal position. I don't think it's as simple as being pro-regulation or anti-regulation. I think the reality is, I think a lot of, I mean, Dave, I would agree with you that some regulation obviously is bad. A lot of regulations are outdated and onerous and whatnot, and should be and should be done away with. Absolutely, but I also think that, but I don't think that means all regulation is bad. I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And the regulation that says no asbestos, personally, I'm all for it. And I don't think it takes any tax money to have that regulation, to have that ban. And I would leave it alone. You know, I would just leave it in place. I'd feel better about having the ban.
I guess that's where you would call us the small L side of any libertarian leanings that we have. Is that I agree with you that there are regulations that are onerous, that do hurt businesses, that do need to be rolled back. But I disagree that all regulations should be done away with. I think there are regulations out there that are in place to protect people, and they need to be in place to continue to protect people and to have less incidences of cancer, to have less incidences of injury. If we go too far too fast, we're going to end up a hurting society. I don't believe that no regulation is good. I think that some regulation is good.
John, are you still there?
John had to leave the room.
Oh, okay, all right.
He's a busy man. You know, he's running all over the building.
He's hopping around.
But yeah. So I think we'll have to agree to disagree on that issue. But I do appreciate the
absolutely
the debate. Dave,
I do agree with you though, Dave. I would like you to please give out that website on where people can sign the petition to help that small business that's trying to not get shut down.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I think if you just go to iPetitions.com and then you search Hollywood Hounds.
Hollywood Hounds, okay.
That should get you there. iPetitions.com, Hollywood Hounds, Bedford.
Wonder if there's ever been a band called Hollywood Hounds. That'd be a cool name for a band. I'm gonna start a band called that. I'm gonna start a band if he'll do it. Well, Dave,
you want to play, Dave?
Dave, you're a musician. How about Dave? You, me, and we'll get Alex O'Connor from It's Been Real. Maybe he'd like to join us, and we'll be the Hollywood Hounds.
I think
as long as it doesn't involve any expenditure of time or effort on my part.
Wait a minute, you have to perform.
Right. We may need to rehearse maybe a couple times a year or something. Anyway. All right, Dave. Well, please, before we let you go, give the Ridley Report a plug.
RidleyReport.com.
All right.
Woo woo.
Dave Ridley, thank you so much for the call, my friend.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Bye-bye. All righty. We should move on to, you wanted to read the, I don't know if you have it ready.
I do.
The piece that Jennifer Horn wrote.
There was,
And to give it context, this is in regard to Jeff Woodburn, the Democratic state senator who apparently has stepped down as minority leader but is not resigning as a New Hampshire state
still
senator.
Running for Senate, and his charges have been upped from to 9 charges now
of domestic violence,
various forms, including physical violence. But former GOP president for the state of New Hampshire, Jennifer Horn, she wrote an opinion piece that appeared in the Union article and entitled it, "Woodburn's Arrest Generates Some Shocking Responses." And there's parts of this article that I really wanted to bring to light for a very larger picture that cannot be overshadowed by this. The surprising arrest of State Senator Jeff Woodburn on domestic violence charges left Concord political class reeling with shock. Woodburn, then Senator Minority Leader, faces 9 domestic violence-related charges against what the Attorney General Office describes as an intimate partner. The AG's bombshell report included accusations that Woodburn bit the alleged victim, struck her in the face and stomach, threw things at her, and kicked in the locked door of her home. Woodburn is innocent until proven guilty and has every right to defend himself, but the details of his arrest led to a number of notable responses. The credible and heinous nature of the accusations led to a rare moment of political unity, where leaders from both sides of the aisle calling for Woodburn's immediate resignation. Governor Chris Sununu, the federal delegation, which I will remind you is all Democratic and all women, and both state party chairs condemned Woodburn's alleged actions and supported the alleged victim. Disappointingly, others would treat allegations of domestic violence more as family embarrassment than a potential crime. And this part makes me sad because it involves my own senator. Senator Lou D'Alessandro is the lone Democratic senator to not call on Woodburn to resign. And he told the newspapers that, quote, Jeff's got to go back to his family and work with it, end quote. Former Republican Senate Majority Leader Bob Clegg was even more out of touch. Quote, up there, times are tough, and families frequently get into arguments. That sometimes goes over the edge, end quote. Domestic violence is not a family issue, but a public threat. It is certainly not a natural response to, quote, tough times, end quote. We need to be wary of false accusations, but responses like these from men who have been elected to represent us make it more difficult for victims to come forward and feel safe. And that is something that I do not want to see get lost in all of the discussion that's going on. And this story has gone national. We've seen it in multiple press locations. It's a horrible story. I don't have a whole lot of doubt on this person's guilt. I know innocent until proven guilty, but I got a kind of feeling that his teeth marks are going to match the teeth marks that were in the woman, because there were 2 incidences of where he actually bit her besides striking her, besides kicking in her door. I mean, why would you kick in somebody else's door? I mean, right there and then you've got an issue. Never mind the fact of his domestic abuse, but to have people belittle it, to have people act like it's nothing. And here's the thing, folks. When you turn a blind eye, when you see that somebody is being abused, somebody is being assaulted, somebody is being victimized, and you close your eyes and you turn around, you are just as guilty as the abuser. If you know that there is abuse going on and you don't say anything, do anything, speak up, step up, then you are part of the problem, not the solution. You are part of the reason why people will make comments like that say, oh, well, sometimes things in families get out of hand. There is never, ever, ever an excuse for abuse or violence from a man or a woman, ever. And if you know about it and you remain silent, you are equally abusive to that victim. So if I can get any point across today, and I thank Jennifer Horn for her writing her opinion piece, Union Leader for publishing it, is if you go to somebody and you think that you can trust them, and you get up that courage and you tell them, and nothing happens, don't let that moment define you. Don't let that moment make you feel like you are less than a human being. Go to somebody else. Go to your state's domestic violence organization. They're there for a reason. They're there to help you, and they will help you. Go to a neighbor. Go to a coworker. Go to your primary care physician. And when they ask you that question, do you feel safe at home? Say no. Because you've got to be able to save yourself. But I think I've done enough of a tirade on that one. But, you know, if you know something, say something. Don't sit there and be silent. Don't let it happen. Don't be the neighbor that's on TV going, geez, I never saw that death coming. Don't be that person. Be the one that's willing to make a difference. Because you can save a life. You really, really can.
Yeah, Ed Murphy in the Facebook live chat said, well said.
Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, we will move on from that because, you know, it's kind of funny. We were talking a moment ago with Dave Ridley, who's obviously extremely anti-government. And I have a story here, and this is something that you had mentioned. I think you had shared this out on your Facebook page at one point. This is an example of where government is very, you know, I said yesterday on the show, I feel that the war on drugs is really a war on the American people. It's the government versus the American people. And this is from Reason.com. It's this will sound familiar to you right away. The 80-year-old woman who had to spend a night in jail.
Oh my God.
Yep. And this is in Michigan, by the way.
This infuriated me.
And Michigan,
beyond belief.
Michigan is the same state where last week I read that story on the air about the way they were entrapping in Michigan, because they have medical cannabis in Michigan. But the police in Michigan in a certain area were entrapping people by keeping an eye on a dispensary where someone was going to get legal cannabis for their medical condition, and then pulling them over after they left the dispensary and busting them for having cannabis, which they bought legally. Absolutely insane. And so this is one of the many reasons why the war on drugs has to end. So here's the story. This is from Reason.com. Michigan cop forced an 80-year-old great-grandmother to spend a night in jail over an expired medical marijuana card. All right, so here's the body of the story. Your outrageous cannabis story of the day, maybe even the summer, comes from Clare County, Michigan, where 80-year-old Dolores Saltzman, a great-grandmother and arthritis patient, was jailed for the first time in her life after a Clare County deputy found her in possession of a small amount of medical cannabis and an expired medical cannabis recommendation. Yeah, protecting and serving, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure she was, does she look terrifying? Is it like the clown from It?
She's quite she's a hardened criminal.
Yeah, 4 foot nothing and 80.
So this next part of the report, Chris Roberts writes this for a publication called Marijuana Moment. And Roberts wrote, Saltzman had been a medical cannabis patient for about 4 years when Clare County Sheriff's Deputy Ashley Grunow visited Saltzman's home at around 9 p.m. on June 13th. According to court records, Deputy Grunow, who was there to locate Saltzman's great-grandmother, who had lost her phone and ID when she smelled marijuana while on Saltzman's porch. Saltzman told the deputy the marijuana was hers. She also revealed that while she was a licensed medical cannabis patient, she had let her recommendation expire. Ooh, that was a mistake on her part. She shouldn't have revealed that.
She's 80 years old.
Never.
She trusted the cop.
I know, but this cop, unfortunately, as we know now, is a sociopath.
Right.
And you never know. That's the thing. That's why you never, ever tell the police more that, they'll act like.
They call that lawyer up.
Yeah, they'll act like they're your friend. Oh, you can tell us. We're going to help you. Don't ever fall for that. Never tell them more than you.
Can you imagine this poor 80-year-old woman? She's like, well, she's just being honest with the cop.
Oh, yeah. And I don't mean to be I hope nobody takes me wrong.
Please read the part where she talks about being in the jail cell.
I'm not trying to be critical of her. I'm just saying, don't ever, just take my advice. You don't ever tell the police more than you need to. Tom Massengale in the Facebook live chat says, can we get Hop a medical cannabis prescription? Well, it's not my day to file the paperwork, but
you have to ask him that.
He can do that himself. Yeah, he's not in the room, so he can't answer you at the moment. Let's see. It says the officer seized several pipes, 4 joints, and 1 purple jar with less than an eighth of an ounce of cannabis, Saltzman said. The deputy then searched the octogenarian's bedroom, handcuffed her, and took her to jail for the night, where cold conditions severely aggravated her arthritis, she said. Now, let me just take a moment to say, and some will think that this is a horrible thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because I sincerely feel this. I don't believe in hell, but stories like this make me hope that there is a hell, and that this deputy has her own little special corner of hell, because that's clearly where she belongs.
Can you imagine they put her? So take somebody who's got severe arthritis, which means they can barely move as is. They're in constant pain unless they're asleep, and you put them on a metal slab.
Yeah.
And you make them stay there all night long. She's lucky she could even move in the morning from having to sleep in that environment. And why? Less than an eighth. Oh my gosh, she's going to start a drug cartel. Are you kidding me?
This is an example, too. People who are very pro-police, and I'm not anti-police, by the way.
Neither am I.
My attitude is, you know what? It's like any other profession. You got good cops, you got bad cops, and you got a million shades of gray in between, okay? But for people who are so pro-police and think you should never question the police or anything, it's, this is one of the reasons why. It's not just unarmed black people being shot, although that's a big reason too. There's other reasons. It's stuff like civil asset forfeiture, and it's stuff like this. It's stuff like an 80-year-old woman being handcuffed in a cold jail cell. Okay, it's stuff like that.
Or the 70-year-old guy that got arrested for marijuana who made harps by hand at home.
Yeah.
I mean, really?
Yeah, there are reasons why you can't just blindly try. And again, there are millions of good cops out there who are genuinely protecting and serving. No disrespect to them. But I cannot understand how some people walk around so pro-police. You hear Trump do it. Oh, law and order, law and order. You should never question the police. BS. You have to question the police. You have to question authority, period. Because of crap like this. And these people are sociopaths, and they're evil. Every single officer involved on any level who condoned what happened to this woman is a sociopath and is evil and should resign and should be ostracized from society because they are evil. They are not out there enforcing the laws. They are not out there protecting and serving. This is torture. This is evil, and I don't want to hear any excuses. Well, she shouldn't have let her card expire. Well, what she was doing should have been
80 years old.
And what she was doing should have been illegal to begin with.
Have you ever forgotten to pay a bill? Have you ever had something expire on you?
Of course.
She's 80 years old. Give her some slack.
And this is part of the war on drugs.
A police officer would have went, okay, I see what's going on here, ma'am.
Of course.
Let's help you out. I'll tell you what, I saw a story, and I wish I could remember what state it was in. So this guy, this cop, he pulls over this woman who has no, did I tell this story on air? She's got no taillights. She doesn't know it.
I don't remember this story.
So the cop pulls this woman over, and she doesn't know why he's pulling her over. She's on her way to a job interview. She's, scared as anything. She's reaching in her glove box trying to find her registration and her proof of insurance. And the cop walks up to the window and he goes, no. You don't need to find any of that. Do you know that both of your brake lights are out? And the woman goes, There's no way, that can't be. I just had them fixed at so-and-so place, and they said they'd charge me another $600 to check the wiring, and we just got it through the inspection, and I'm on my way to a job interview, and now it's obvious this girl is getting very upset. What does the cop do? What do you think he does? Because I guarantee you he didn't do anything that you think he did.
Oh, I remember this story now.
You know what he does? He says to the lady, "Pop your trunk." So she does.
Right.
He goes back there and he starts checking the wiring. He's tapping on the light bulbs. He's checking out the brake lights. He has her pop the hood. He checks the box in the engine. He goes inside her car. He checks the fuse box inside her car. All he wanted was to make sure that she had brake lights, so if she had to stop, nobody would hit her from behind and there wouldn't be an accident, and get her to her job interview. And that's exactly what that police officer did. He had a choice.
That's a good cop.
He could have ticketed her. He could have had her car towed because it had no brake lights, and she would have never gotten to that job interview. He could have done all of those things and it would have been well within the law, but he chose to use his own brain and go, oh my gosh, I'm going to help this young girl out. She obviously got taken advantage of, didn't realize it. Let me help her. And he did.
Oh, he not only did a good thing, but he went above and beyond.
Big time.
He went above and beyond. That's a great cop.
And those are good cops. And those are the kind of cops that are out there for the majority of the factor.
Millions
but when
of
you've got
great cops.
a cop like that, you know what? I want that cop in a car driving around looking for drunk drivers, not knocking on some 80-year-old woman's door because she smelled marijuana.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because a drug cartel is going to start up in that 80-year-old woman's house. Can we get over it, people? Canada is legalizing in October. The entire nation borders our nation.
Yeah.
What are you going to... So what we're hearing is that Canadian citizens who admit to using cannabis are not going to be allowed to cross the American border. Well, there goes the tourist industry.
Well, they can just not admit it. But fortunately, we are.
But if they don't know better and they think it's perfectly fine to say, yeah whatever.
Yeah. We are headed in the right direction, fortunately, but
I hope so.
We are. It is inevitable. It will be legal here nationally. I do truly believe that. Will the war on drugs in totality ever end in our lifetimes? I don't know, but we are headed for legal cannabis, I do believe, nationally. At least I certainly hope so. I am optimistic about that, as angry as I get about stories like this. Hello to Peter White from The Morning Show with Peter White and the Moose, who joins us in the Facebook live chat.
Yeah, and was it you, Pete, that came up with Connarton, or was it Compton?
I think it was Joel, as he was trying to figure out how to pronounce my name.
Those were a riot.
And hello to Elizabeth Ropp, the Acupunk. She says, I saw filmed police pull over a car with guns drawn. I checked the police log later. That event did not result in an arrest. That's interesting. I'd like to know more about that story. And hello to Len Lorenz, or Lenny, who you can also hear very often on The Morning Show with Peter White
Elizabeth
and the Moose.
wants us to come have dinner.
Oh, very nice. That would be wonderful. There is more to this story. Let's see. It says here, there is no pretense. Again, this is from Reason.com. There is no pretense of protecting public safety in cases like this one, and no remotely believable argument that arresting Saltzman for unlicensed cannabis possession served as punishment for crimes the state can't prove. Two arguments prosecutors routinely trot out to justify charging drug offenders. In fact, Clare County prosecutor Michelle Abrozal, I can't even pronounce this woman's last name, Michelle something, dropped the charges.
Yep.
Well, that's good.
They told her to go renew her license, and they would drop the charges.
Yep, dropped the charges against Saltzman after the elderly woman renewed her medical marijuana card. Hell, she even made the entire fiasco sound reasonable. Okay, so this is what I want to give this woman credit, so I'm going to make another pass at trying to say her name. Michelle Ambrozatsis. It's probably something like that. She said, quote, our goal is to ensure that individuals who utilize medical marijuana are doing so legally. As such, Ms. Saltzman was encouraged to obtain her medical marijuana card, and if she did so, the case would be dismissed. So she did obtain her medical marijuana card, and the case was dismissed. Okay, good.
You do realize that was the easy out for the embarrassing situation that police department was in. And if the AG had not gone in that direction, can you imagine the outrage?
Oh, I hope there would be outrage.
I mean, come on. You just take one look at this woman and you would be outraged.
Yeah.
Just look it up. Just Google it. Google 80-year-old woman arrested for cannabis possession in Michigan. Look at this woman and tell me how frightening she looks to you and how much you would have been enraged if that AG had gone forward with pressing charges and they had not found their easy way out, which is what they did. I think they did an easy way out to try and save their own face and get the story out of the limelight because they don't want to be talked about as the police department that arrested the 80-year-old woman.
Oh, they don't care? Are you kidding me? You think they care?
Yeah, I do.
You think that police department cares?
Yeah, I do, especially if that AG gets elected.
I doubt that.
I bet they do care.
If this is what goes on, I'm sure that police department is populated by sociopaths who don't care. Their attitude is probably like, "Hey, we were following the law." I would almost guarantee you they don't care.
I would hate to think that
they don't care. If this is what goes on, no, I don't. There's nothing in here.
Well, I mean, that's what.
There's nothing in here.
Go on in our own state.
There's nothing in here about this officer being disciplined for what this deputy.
True.
Nothing.
That's true.
There is a little bit more to this article, though. In response, so the author of the article writes, in response to what the DA said, a better goal might be training law enforcement officers to use discretion, not waste taxpayer dollars, and avoid traumatizing elderly residents. A citation should have been the most drastic action Deputy Grunow even considered, and her prosecutor should know better than to justify the excess Grunow displayed. I am frightened for the residents of Clare County that they are policed by people who think any of this was necessary or appropriate. Agreed. This kind of thing may be happening less as more and more states reform their marijuana laws. But the fact that it continues to happen anywhere ever is a reminder that the enforcement arm of the state seldom honors the spirit of a drug reform law if it doesn't have to.
You know, in hearing you say that, I have to take it back. I have to agree with you that it is the entire department, because I can only imagine the police officer walking in with this 80-year-old woman handcuffed to be booked and fingerprinted and photographed and strip searched and all of the horrible things they do when they arrest somebody.
Yep, and nobody says, hey, what are we doing?
Why are we doing this to this 80-year-old woman? Where's their chief? Where's the supervisor who was on at that point in time? Where's the booking agent going, are you serious? You really want me to book this woman?
Right, exactly.
Like, why did nobody stand up for her?
Exactly.
Is it the blue wall? Is it because another police officer brought him in? You have to go with it? Can't you speak up and say, I think you're going a little over the edge with this one. How about we just give her a little citation here and give her a drive home, or call her an Uber or something, because
bunch of sociopaths.
So you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
I have to admit,
evil.
You're right.
Oh
my God, the world's changed.
Yes.
What do you mean the world's changed? We agree all the time. It's you I don't agree with all the time. Hoppy came back.
We were both right.
No, we were talking about an 80-year-old woman who was put in jail overnight for possession of less than an eighth of cannabis.
Well, it's a wickedness.
Because her card expired and she accidentally didn't renew it on time.
Oh. This is how these nefarious arch criminals like Professor Moriarty.
She was going to start a cartel. She was going to start a drug cartel.
And then we don't have Sherlock Holmes anymore to go after.
What would we use?
Well,
I think jail's too good for her. Oh, by the way, William Martin, candidate for Congress, CD1, is going to come in for 5 minutes.
When
he finishes doing his shtick up on the third floor.
Right.
William Martin.
Well, I'll be interested to hear that. That's our district.
Well, we'll get to know William Martin.
CD1 is our district.
Yeah, and there's 11 people running.
It's the top of the hour, so let's take a quick break. I'm going to play a song. I'm actually going to play something non-political, and I do have to mute the Facebook Live for a few moments because, we get in trouble if we play copyrighted material on the Facebook. But if you are listening to the show on Facebook Live, you can also listen at WMNHradio.org if you want to listen online. And, of course, at 95.3 if you're in Manchester. So I'm going to mute that for a couple minutes.
And don't forget Channel 97 on. the first time that I've ever worn a set that was comfortable and didn't make me constantly feel like I was itching or having a hard time moving. So, shout out to another small business out there that made a difference in Olympi life. So thank you.
Very nice. Hello to Heidi Hammer, who joins us in the Facebook live chat.
Heidi, I want my sign.
Oh, my.
Heidi, I want my sign. I keep asking her for a sign. I want my sign.
She's also getting into politics, but I think I don't think she's thinking big enough. I think she should be Glenn R.J. Willette's running mate.
Oh, hell no.
And she could be the lieutenant mayor of Africa.
No.
I think it'd be very exciting.
Heidi's too smart for that.
Well, it's a big job.
Heidi's too smart for that.
Mayor of a continent.
And she's got me in her corner pocket, and I promised her I would teach her every little nook and cranny I know.
Oh, my goodness.
How
do you teach someone nooks and crannies?
You teach them
what does that
all
even
the
mean?
Things that they don't teach you in orientation.
What is the etymology of that expression anyway, nooks and crannies? It's a very odd thing to say.
It's all the little things that are hidden, all the things you don't see unless somebody points it out.
No, I know what it means.
Well, I'm trying to help you.
I just, like, where does that come from? And why do we use expressions like screwed the pooch? That's a horrible thing to say. Or kill two birds with one stone. Or anything that refers to abuse of animals in a frivolous way.
I just like old euphemisms.
These expressions are very upsetting to me.
I grew up with them. They're not upsetting.
I blame John Hopwood.
Hoppy didn't have anything to do with that one. I'll blame him for certain things, but I'm not.
Screwed the pooch?
No, wait a minute.
I was thinking about... Where do you get this off the top of my head?
Where's the...
yeah, where do you get that?
Who are you now? Because you went from here to there, so did you change?
Well, I'm busy, trying to finagle people to come down here.
Finagle or wrangle? I think wrangle's a better word for that. Yes. I hate to be picky.
Wrangle.
You can use wrangle. You can't use the other one.
Finagle?
No.
No, he agreed to use wrangle.
No, he can use wrangle. I'll let him use wrangle.
I grew up with Yiddish being spoken.
Oh.
My father was a siding salesman.
Wrangle's a Yiddish word?
They used to talk to each other with Yiddish with people, so people didn't understand what they were saying because it hadn't hit TV
That's
quite
yet.
That's my
family.
And it's like on television shows in the 60s. They'd be swearing and saying stuff in Yiddish.
My
Nobody
aunts
knew.
would be going at it, and I'd hear... Genenda Ruchel, and I go, I heard my name in the Yiddish. I am in trouble.
Well, as Gene Simmons once said, dress British, think Yiddish.
There you go.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
I have a story here from thehill.com. This is something short, but it says here, death penalty expert says 7% of all executions by lethal injections are botched.
Mm-hmm.
Death penalty expert Robert Dunham
How
says...
many? What percentage?
7%.
That's not much.
Well, as someone who opposes the death penalty, I think it's 7% too many.
Would you rather be strapped into old Sparky in Alabama? They botched that, too.
Yes.
I'd rather be in front of a firing squad.
I agree.
I'd rather not be executed.
If I was going to be executed,
well, yes.
My preferred choice would be the firing squad.
Yes, nice and quick.
Yep.
Death penalty expert
Usually
Robert
the bullet
Dunham
hits you before you feel the pain.
says the mishandling of lethal injections for death row inmates is more common than may be believed. He says, quote, the estimates are about 7% of all executions by lethal injections are botched. Dunham, executive director of
Botched?
Is executive director of the Death Penalty Information Center, said he blames the statistic on a majority of lethal injections being performed by non-medical personnel, citing a 2014 incident involving an Oklahoma inmate who has been sentenced to death. By the way, that raises a question in my mind that I've never considered before. How do you get medical personnel to do this? I mean, doesn't it violate the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm? So,
but they don't do it
morally and ethically.
Well,
he's saying that.
Yeah, they do.
So
they have to have a doctor on hand to pronounce, and somebody has to push the drugs. But what they do to get around it, from like a medical person will start the IV and will do the pronounce of death. But what they do is they specially train people. They're not all medical. And they're each in charge of pushing a certain pump.
Yeah.
And one of them is pure saline. Nobody knows who's pushing what to necessarily know that they're the one that gave the deadliest, the final dead drug. basically.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, as much as I've talked about the death penalty and my opposition to it, I don't know why this particular question has never occurred to me before. But I just don't see how, again, because of the Hippocratic Oath, I don't see how any medical person could participate at all, could get anywhere near this process.
I think this
morally and ethically.
It's a double-edged sword, I guess. I guess it depends on where that person's coming from and whether or not they feel it's justified. I mean, I suppose it would be hard, say, for example, for somebody who had the skill and was asked, would you volunteer to help with the execution of this person, like Jeffrey Dahmer, who killed countless numbers of little boys. And
no, I get that.
And you're a dad, and you've got kids, and maybe in your mind's eye, you see it as a service to the public. I don't know. Personally,
you're right.
As a former medical provider with nearly 2 decades, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
I just don't see how
I spent my whole life trying to save people's lives. At worst, would be the situation when somebody was dying, and then in that moment, my job was to hold their hand and to talk to them so that when they passed, they knew they were not alone. That was how I saw it.
Yeah, I just don't see. I just don't see how this doesn't violate the Hippocratic Oath. Whether you think the person quote unquote deserves it or not, I don't see how you get around that.
No. Wait a minute, guys, because don't go too far down into the weeds on that one. Because you got to remember, too, we have situations where people are in critical care units.
Right.
They're brain dead.
Oh.
That's not the same thing,
We have to take them off of life support.
But that's not the same thing. That's not the
My
same thing.
father,
That's not killing
see
someone.
It the same way.
My father was life was terminated by a doctor that they took his license
Some
away.
religions believe that if you end that life support, you've committed murder.
Right. But
I mean, it does.
But
happen.
it's not with the intent to harm. It's with the intent to relieve someone of their or whatever, or if they're brain dead and you're just keeping them alive to keep them alive.
Yeah, but that's
not the same as actively killing someone.
Matt, have you been in that situation?
It's hard.
It's not that. Because I have.
You've done a harvest?
No, we.
That's what it's called.
We decided to end my father's life, terminated after he was a victim of medical malpractice.
I've
by
been
a doctor
part
that
of multiple harvests, and
right.
I saw a night.
Wait, what is a harvest? I'm still confused.
That is when
you have to be
somebody is somebody's an organ donor, or a family makes a decision to be an organ donor, which I highly, 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 highly support. I'm a card-carrying member. You can save a life. You can give somebody back vision. You can give somebody back.
Your foreskin.
Oh God, so much. The first harvest that I was ever a part of was absolutely horrifying, and I will tell you that it's not different. That you're looking at that beautiful person and you're cleaning them up and you're getting them ready to go to this OR, and your heart is bleeding and you're doing everything you can not to cry. I know I did. I had, when it was over, when they came and they took this 19-year-old girl who had died from a peanut allergy, I had to go outside.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the only one who needed to go outside and shed some tears, because to look at her, she was alive. But we all know she was brain. We watched it. We did every test. It was a horrible situation, but she saved 7 people. One of them was a 16-year-old boy who got to live because he needed a new heart.
Right.
So being a part of that in the medical field is not easy by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
And it is very difficult, even though you know the person is brain dead, to prepare them for harvesting. It is very hard.
The person who is going to be...
You know that person's not coming back.
Right.
You're getting them ready
the
for their final trip.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to take them off of the life support when it's over. And you know that when you're getting them ready. So, I mean, no, it's not easy at all.
Oh, I'm sure it's not, yeah.
But
I can talk about
Don't
doctor being so
lose-
callous.
But don't
the other way,
lose
doesn't
sight
give a
of the
damn.
fact
Right.
that when you are willing to say yes to organ donation, you are literally putting yourself in the position that the last thing that you do on this earth is save another life or change a life or enable somebody to be able to see their mom for the first time ever. You have that ability. And in my faith, we call it a mitzvah, to do something that is for others. And to me, the greatest gift that I can give when I pass this from this world is being an organ donor. And I'm proud of being an organ donor. And God rest her soul, Mary Frohock, my love, my nurse who trained me so well, she talked about it highly. And we encouraged people to sign up, and she's part of the reason I signed up to be an organ donor.
You know what I always hear?
Here's somebody from the Bedford VA, she just passed, who has helped a lot of people.
That's sad.
Yeah. You know what? You know what?
She was just alive, and then she's gone.
I sometimes hear as an argument against organ donation, and let me preface this by saying I don't believe this at all. I think this is crazy, the kind of stuff conspiracy theorists believe. But the thing that I hear is occasionally people say, well, if you're an organ donor and it's on your driver's license or whatever, they won't do as much to save you because they want to harvest your organs.
Not even close.
Which I know is absurd, but I hear
Not
people,
even close.
But I hear people say that.
I have seen organ donors who we worked so hard to save their lives that we literally were working on them for over an hour, that there was a team of us in a line, like a waiting line, because our arms and our bodies were so tired from doing CPR that we were just filtering one right after another. And as soon as you got too tired, the next person stepped up, and we worked and we worked and we worked and we did everything we could to save saving a life is the ultimate thing that you can do. Being able to stop somebody from leaving this world. I have one save that bears in my mind that will never leave my mind. Not that there weren't others, but there's one that makes a significant difference in my life. And I bet you every medical provider out there has that exact same feeling. They have that save that sticks in their mind, and they know that they made that difference, not just in saving that person's life, but enabling them to go home to their friends and their family and still be alive in this world. So no. And by the way, we don't even look at your driver's license unless we need to figure out who you are. And then that's all we want to know is your name and your date of birth. Then we go to taking, we're already taking care of you. Nobody cares if you're an organ donor. Nobody even knows if you're an organ donor until after you're gone, because that's when we get a phone call from the organ donors. Okay, guys? So forget that. That is absolute bunk. It's bull. And God, I hate it when people say that.
And we've been joined by a gentleman in a nice suit who looks like he's running for office.
Yes, he's actually running in our district.
Oh, who are you, sir?
Hello, my name is William Martin. I'm actually running for the 1st Congressional District down for D.C., the Carl Shea Porter seat.
Oh, very good. Well, welcome to the show.
Pull that mic a little bit closer to you.
You were, now we should mention, of course, John Hopwood was able to wrangle you because you were in the building doing, how long are those presentations that you record here for television?
3 minutes.
3 minutes, yeah. All right, so, well, tell us about yourself. We'll start there.
All right, I'm actually a New Hampshire native. I was born in Nashua. I've lived in Derry almost my entire life, and then more recently moved to Manchester last year.
Okay.
Welcome to Manchester.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And why are you, what made you decide to run?
Well, I've always felt very strongly about a bit of a sense of community. I used to be a Boy Scout back in elementary school through high school.
Yeah.
And lately I've just gotten very dissatisfied with the way the system's been running, so I thought I'd rather step up than keep leaving it to chance of who else is going to run. At least I can trust myself.
Right.
So could you tell us what party affiliation you have and if there are any specific issues that you're running on for a platform?
Of course. I'm running as a Democrat. Where there's a lot of us this year, so you're probably going to be seeing a lot of people coming through this station.
No doubt, yeah.
No, I'm running on platforms like I would like to reform campaign finance by overturning Citizens United.
Mm-hmm.
I'm personally running my own campaign only on my own spare change, which, let me tell you, is a very limiting thing. But I would like to be able to present proof that it's possible to run an honest campaign without being able to be bought by anyone. And
What if an individual wanted to donate to you? Would you?
After the primary, I'm willing to take donations from someone who is in my district to vote for me, and that's it.
I
No
have
company?
honestly never. I don't think I've ever heard a Republican, Democrat, or Libertarian say that.
Yeah.
Keep going. You're impressing me so far.
Yeah. It's not just what I want to do for myself. It's how I'd like to change the standard to. I'd like it so campaign funding comes from voters. It doesn't come from middlemen or companies or someone from Massachusetts buying a seat in New Hampshire, some from New Hampshire buying a seat in Rhode Island. Nothing like that. It comes directly and only from the people who can vote in an election. And I think that will get rid of a lot of corruption.
Is this your first time running? Or?
Oh, yeah, it is. I tried to get on the ballot 2 years ago, but I turned out to have gotten my voter registration in just a little too late to qualify for the 1 week filing period.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. Now, so can you expand a little bit, because you were talking about reforming the system? You mentioned Citizens United. Go ahead and talk to us about some other issues that you're concerned about specifically.
I'm concerned a lot about healthcare. I'm one of the proponents on single-payer healthcare. I don't think that you should be limited in getting medicine based on who you're working for.
Mm-hmm.
If you get laid off, you shouldn't be in trouble if you're sick. If your company goes under through no fault of your own, why are you off the hook if your car breaks down and somebody hits you on the road or something like that? You need medical coverage.
Let me ask you a question important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Would you, if elected, would you work to remove the exclusion on Medicare health insurance policies that allows them to deny someone access to their policy for a pre-existing condition?
Definitely. I think healthcare is for everyone. I'm
Because
certain that I have relatives just like everyone else.
Mutual of Omaha denied me a health insurance policy through the Medicare system because of cancer. Why do I have Medicare? Cancer. And I was denied and I can and not allowed to have a medical policy. So I can only have a supplement.
I think you should have a policy. I think you should have a policy because you're an American citizen. I mean, we are far behind Europe. In Europe, even the tourists who get hurt in Europe are covered by medical in the various countries.
You're absolutely correct.
And
I have a planned trip to go to the Netherlands, and my friend over there, who is a retired military nurse, has told me not to worry, that he'd easily be able to take me over there and have my port flushed, that we wouldn't have to worry about having my port flushed in their country. In this country, I got to worry about it.
You know, it's funny that Vika went back to Russia for something.
Tell me about, so you're running
Russia.
for the first congressional seat. Have you run for office before?
this is the first time I've ever been on the ballot. It's really
what
exciting.
What made you decide to go for Congress?
Well, I looked at state and I looked at federal, and I knew that there were more policies that I thought I could have a good impact on the federal level than the state level, because there's a lot of things that really we can't just leave up to say New Hampshire has good health care, but no one else does. People work across state lines, move across state lines all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We need things that affect things on a national basis. And there's a small pragmatic angle to it, too. We couldn't afford to live on my wife's income alone if I was in the state house in New Hampshire.
Right.
We do need to be able to still feed ourselves, too, and have me be a responsible member of Congress.
Let me qualify that statement for you. For our listeners that are not in, because we do have a lot of listeners across the country, in the state of New Hampshire is a very unique state in that the salary for state representatives and senators is actually in the Constitution and is $100 per year, and reimbursement on gas mileage at 55 cents per mile. That's it. You do not get a paycheck. You do not get a staff. You don't get a lot of things.
It's a citizen legislature.
It truly is a citizen legislature.
One way you can call it.
So I wanted to just let people know that there's a valid reason there. it's hard to be a state legislator and not have an income of some sort. So I can see that. Where would your position be on the United States changing the category of cannabis?
I'm in favor of legalization. I think we should legalize it and tax it. Treat it like cigarettes and alcohol.
It is taxed by the feds from 35.
What is it that most got you upset or most got your attention that made you go, no, I'm going to step up and run? I'm putting my name up.
Honestly, Citizens United was one of the things, and our failure to be able to have good tax reform. A lot of problems which don't seem economic in nature, and this might be because I'm an accountant, I'm believing this, come back to money in the end.
Thank you for not being a lawyer.
No.
You can be a lawyer and an accountant.
I'm not, though. I don't have a JD.
There's too many lawyers anyway already involved in politics.
We've got a lot of lawyers. Yes.
We need more Sawyers.
Oh, right.
Lumberjack. we have a lumberjack paraphilia
so
here.
What's your background in?
Well, I've been an accountant for the last 6 years. I work in nonprofit. I'm not in PR, though, so I can't talk about my company, just to keep it fair. Before that, I've been in retail, construction, home maintenance. Had a lot of little odd jobs over the years.
How does being an accountant, because I used to write about accounting amongst many other things, it's a way of looking at the world that is pretty no nonsense. And I used to read about GAAP and then the government accounting principles. And then there was the federal government, which is really bound by nothing. And if a corporation did, we'd all be in jail. But how has that affected your worldview and how you would approach governing?
I think it's taught me a lot about being able to look at both what it takes to be able to run a government effectively and to be able to run a house effectively at the same time. It's easy to say an arbitrary number for tax brackets and things like that, but when you really look at it, your income taxes are higher than you think.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have Social Security and Medicare in there.
Well, the average American pays over 100 taxes on practically a daily basis. They don't even realize.
Exactly, and I think that we need to make these things as simple as possible, as transparent as possible, and try to aim them away from the people who are already in trouble when it comes to their money.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't have somebody being squeezed by taxes on top of everything else when they're below the poverty line.
Right,
but they're still paying their Social Security and Medicare, and I'd like to say that your employer should be paying 100% of that until you're above the poverty line, and I mean a poverty line that reflects actual living wages instead of the current number we have right now, something you couldn't have a small apartment on.
Right.
Yourself.
All right. Well, listen, we know we kind of, John wrangled you at the last minute.
So where can people find out more info on you, though? Let's make sure we get that. What's your website?
I'm actually only on Facebook at Elect William Martin. I'm running a very, very low money campaign, as I said.
Elect William Martin on Facebook, running for CD1 in the state of New Hampshire.
That is correct. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. And, good luck with the primary. And, if it goes well, we'll have you back.
Thank you very much.
Or even if it doesn't go well for you, we'll have you back. How's that?
I wouldn't mind. I'm just down the road.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you so much for stopping in.
Yeah. Thank you for stopping in. You're on my radar. You're on my voter radar.
All right. And we are also now joined by, for the first time in a long time, Eric Eastman is here from a little program called Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. And what have you done with the Honorable Gary S. Hopper?
Oh, I've safely sequestered him in one of the best places you can hide anyone, which would be the D.C. Beltway.
Yeah. Oh, good.
So yeah, I mean, it's a big swamp, and
so you've exiled him?
For the time being, yeah. I don't know if D.C. will ever be the same, because when you get that kind of concentrated a force of chaos in a city like that,
I don't know. It's
many
kind
good
of
things
already
can
there.
happen.
I mean,
well, that's the thing is that matter and antimatter, when they get together, there's a party. So we'll see what happens.
My one experience in Washington, D.C. was many years ago. I was on a tour with a band, and we played a show in Washington, D.C., and it went very well. It was nice, and I remember at the end of the night as we're loading out our gear into the truck and having crackheads come up to us and bother us.
Cool.
I can't talk about the reason I was in D.C. because I actually had to sign a confidentiality agreement, but I did. It was held at the Newseum. It was a really big deal. But I gotta say, the most horrifying thing was sitting at a lunch table, and hearing a woman sitting next to me going, "Oh, well, I went to the ATM machine and I got held up at knife point. It happens." And I'm sitting there like horrified, going, "What do you mean it happens?"
Well, it does. It
apparently in DC that's normal.
It literally happens.
Go figure.
Well, you're kind of doing public service. You got to figure every other trip to the ATM, you're giving back.
That's right.
All right.
Hello.
I mean, the IRS could do it, which they do.
Yes.
Pretty much with similar methodologies. They're just not explicit. Or the guy on the street could do it. It kind of cuts down on the turnaround time.
By the way, hello to Ryan Pope, Rhino, my bandmate in a little band called The Jinxed.
Love to see that get back together.
Good to see Ryan in the Facebook Live chat.
Ryan, make him do it.
All right. That's a cool name for a band.
Yes.
That actually is a really cool name for a band.
They
really
have some good stuff, and then they haven't played together in a long time, so I keep trying to get them to do it. Now, I saw a clipboard in your hand there, sir.
Yeah, you did.
You are a running candidate, I take it.
Oh, this for the first time in weeks, I'm actually sitting. But have I been running? Yeah, it's been an interesting ride. The gentleman that was just on before me, I've seen him in action. I've seen him up there at a candidate forum over at St. Anselm's College at the Political Center, Center for Politics, talking about a lot of the things he was articulating today. He's a good man. He's got a nice family, and I wish him all the best.
Yes.
If he prevails and he gets his party nomination, he's running it lean and mean, but stranger things have happened.
It's most likely going to be Naomi Andrews, in my opinion.
Stranger things can happen.
It could well be, but whoever that is,
yes,
I get to shake their hand up on the debate stage, hopefully, if all the nomination papers that I have been running to collect over the last 6 weeks have created a sum that crests the 1,500 signature threshold.
So you're doing a writing campaign.
Well, it's not writing. It's a third party candidacy. So if you're not running Team Red or Team Blue, you don't get the cornucopia of nifty prizes that the candidates there get. You have to jump through a bunch of extra hoops, like a poodle at a show.
I thought you were Team Red, or at least on paper.
On paper, and had been in the past, and that was a great learning experience. And I'm running as a Justice Progressive. For realsies.
Wait a minute.
For realsies.
That's
yeah,
not
no, I know.
I'm going to be honest.
It sounds like a huge leap, doesn't it?
No, I'm going to be honest in saying I have no idea what that is.
No problem, because
I'm not trying to be rude or anything.
Not
I
at
really
all.
don't know.
It's a party name that I made up.
And does the Honorable Gary S. Hopper know about this?
He knows all about it. As a matter of fact, the complexion of our online or on-camera interaction has changed quite a bit in recent weeks.
Oh, my goodness.
And the way that we handle our conversations and some of the things that we stick up for. And, Gary's got a lot of great ideas, and he's got a lot of strong beliefs. He's not shy about it.
But he's more of he's a traditional conservative.
Yeah. And social conservative as well.
Right to the right.
And I'm anything but that when it comes to social issues. And, and it's not as big a leap as you might think. I was Liberty Republican for a long time, and liberty means a lot of the same things. A lot of the beliefs are in line with what progressives feel about the world.
Is this why the tan outfit? Because remember, Obama once wore a tan suit, and the world went crazy over it.
Now,
Did they? Well, that's good insight. Maybe I was subconsciously going for that same effect. I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But the boots make it, dude.
The boots do make it.
Obama certainly never wore boots like that.
I think
these are spanking boots.
It's not. What makes it is the hair.
Yeah, it's there. It's there.
The hair makes it.
That's true. You certainly don't have the hair of a traditional
men can
Republican.
Wear long hair and have it look attractive, and that does look very good on you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
But I really like to honestly.
It's work, honey. It's work all the time. Just work. 2 feet of hair.
I know.
I'm gonna come. I know it's a sin, but honestly, I covet your hair.
You covet away. It will covet you back.
Wow.
Now, can you?
Oh my.
So let's get back. I seriously.
We just took a serious detour in this conversation. I'm glad you joined us.
No, wait. I seriously want to go back to my question about what the name of your party is and what the platform of it is.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. I actually have good piece of the party platform here. Not that I don't have most of it memorized, obviously, but
Do you have a lot of members?
Actually, yes. What's gone on in the 2 years that have elapsed since the 2016 shakeup, so to speak, and shakeup on both sides of the aisle. You know, people didn't expect Trump to get the nomination, and people certainly didn't expect the Sanders supporters and Sanders himself to be, some might argue, disenfranchised to the extent that they were. And it left a real bad taste in the mouth and the hearts of a lot of progressives and people that earnestly believe in a worldview that they don't see getting advanced, and certainly didn't 2 years ago when their nominee was someone they would prefer to have had be somebody else.
Right.
And even at the DNC convention, you know, there was talk of, I wasn't there. Yeah. This is secondhand. It's hearsay, but there's talk of some serious shenanigans when it came to 11th hour rules changes that caused the outcomes that occurred.
Yes.
And the amount of delegates that got sidelined, so to speak.
A lot of Bernie supporters feel like they didn't feel the burn; they got burned.
But can I say
by their own party?
Can I add something about this?
Some do feel that way, so I recognize that.
There is all the different ways of picking a delegate, but there were different tiers of selecting delegates. Because I was with Hillary on the first thing, the vote.
Sure.
Although much more attuned with Bernie, but for reasons I went with her. She hugged me on the first minute of the first day of the primary because it was Ward 10.
I think
lost
he's
all my campaign cash because that thing went everywhere.
I think he's sweet on her, is what he's saying.
No, that was Debbie Musselman show.
I guess.
Now, but that's another story. But when it came to the second tier, where we're voting for another thing, more delegates.
Yeah.
I voted for some Bernie people, but the Bernie people, a lot of Bernie people that were complaining weren't there. Now, it might be because they didn't understand it, they didn't have it. So, and I always think that because I was asked, candidates, because I voted for Donna Soucy, Chris Pappas, or Hillary,
Wasn't
and
there
then a woman
supposedly some
that was a Bernie
shenanigans with
supporter.
buses
Because,
that some of the delegates didn't get there?
Well,
or?
some actually had they encountered a no reentry policy that suddenly
no, not where I was. That
suddenly was imposed, and you know I've heard tell of all this stuff, but again I wasn't there. I accept that.
Let's
so
get back
here's
to
what
where
I'm
we
doing.
were.
The
getting
process,
back to the question.
they probably didn't understand.
I really want to hear that. I really want to hear this.
So getting back to the question, and then I'll read a quote to you, which is actually a tweet, a post by the political anchor at MUR, Adam Sexton. Who was,
I love him.
Who was there? Yeah, he was
and
there
his wife and
at the
family.
New Hampshire Secretary of State's office on the day that I filed my letter of intent. Of course, that was before I had to go out and collect over 1,500 signatures from registered voters.
Cool.
And today is the deadline at 5 p.m., close of business. All those nomination papers were turned in to the respective city hall clerks all over the state, all over CD1.
That's right. They have to
So
be,
you're running for CD1
Today
as well.
was deadline, so I'm breathing out a huge sigh of relief. So when you said you're running for something, believe me, I've been running.
You're running for CD1 as well.
I am indeed. Same seat that the good gentleman that was here earlier who was running on the Democrat ticket in hopes of getting the nomination. Well, I don't have a primary on September 11th in New Hampshire because I'm running a third-party campaign.
Yeah.
And the name of that campaign is the Justice Progressives. And you
Great.
asked about what that means.
Yeah.
There is a party that was created out of more of a super PAC that was created out of the apparatus, the Bernie election campaign apparatus, as well as a bunch of people over at the Young Turks, who, as you know, broadcast online.
We know them well.
We know them very well.
They all got together and they said, "Look, this don't fly. You know, we don't like what happened here to our party in 2016. We got to do something. We got to do it big." And so they laid the architecture for a new party, and that party name is Justice Democrats. Now, I attempted to register at the Secretary of State's office maybe 6-8 weeks ago under that name, but Bill Gardner, the New Hampshire Secretary of State, longest-serving Secretary of State in the nation, from what I understand, and a good man and a wonderful public servant, he had concerns about voter confusion using the name Democrat on two different columns on the ballot, right? So, and he's bumped into his share of recounts and disputes and electoral disputes.
Chad and that stuff.
You know, he's seen it. So, you know, I trust his instincts. So I went with what he said, and I came back to him a few days later with this idea. And he said, I can give you 2 thumbs up on that. Go with that.
Excellent.
And so Justice Progressives is the name of the party.
It's a good name.
I have position paper here that I'll read a couple of the planks from that position paper.
Please, yeah.
Jumpstart our economy. We need a bold economic vision that'll both reclaim lost capital and put money back in the pockets of hardworking Americans and create millions of new jobs for those that have been left out of the workforce. And there's a lot of, secondary provisions that will contribute to the overall outcome. I mean, it's a big goal, and I just spoke in general terms just there.
Right.
But that's the synopsis. End tax dodging loopholes, block bad trade deals, build the New Deal, create the renewable energy revolution, secure a living wage, tie it to inflation, end unnecessary wars and nation building, which are costly.
Amen to that.
So there's a lot of stuff going on out there in the world that people who are ideologically... You got me
on that one, that's for sure.
Yeah, a lot of people that get really myopic with their thinking and they get real partisan.
Yeah.
Ideologically, they end up in a kind of an echo chamber.
Right.
And I appreciate that because idealism is a wonderful thing. It motivates people, gets them fiery. But face it, it's a complicated world.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't just say one, yay Red Sox, boo Yankees all the time.
Right.
Everybody's got talent and everybody's got something to bring to the game.
Right,
If
right.
you pardon the metaphor. So there's a bunch of other stuff I stand for that the Justice Democrats do too. But what they've been doing is recruiting really high-quality candidates all over the country for the last 2 years to run right now, this year, this fall.
Yeah.
And they've got about 150 of them. And I've looked at their slate. It's pretty impressive. You've got people from all professions, really sharp people.
Mm-hmm.
And they're running under this banner. They're not running as Democrats because they want to put the soul back into the Democrat Party. And I get it.
Yeah.
From their point of view, it's lacking some, or it's forfeited some.
Yes, because what's disappointing to me is there's a lot of that were Bernie supporters that have been steamrolled by the New Hampshire Party.
Oh, precisely.
And just tuck their tail between their legs.
Yeah.
And I was expecting something like this, and it never happened.
One of my biggest pet peeves with the federal level offices, with congressional seats as well as the Senate, is every time I talk to a candidate, I say the same thing. Are you going to do something about constituent services? Every one of them says yes. Nobody does a thing. Everybody gets a form letter about something. Nobody's issues get addressed directly. Nobody's staff is really reading those letters very well. And then they hold town halls and they send paid staff and they don't even show up.
Right. No, and you know what? That's the old paradigm, is doing it that way, outreach at the grassroots.
That was what upset me when I went to Senator Shaheen town hall, and she's not there.
Sure. So here's a novel idea.
Yeah.
In the age of gadget-driven lifestyles,
mm-hmm.
one of my first promises will be, I get on this ballot, if this works, and all the nomination papers I turned in all over the state with my team today clear the bar. Now I'm just up against the Democrat nominee, the Republican nominee, the Libertarian, and me. And that's who's going to be on the debate stage.
Yeah.
And that's going to be amazing.
It's going to be fireworks, folks. I promise you.
That really gets my interest up, boy.
I mean, somebody's got to do something.
Well,
They've got to speak for the people that feel that their party's just not representing them.
Well,
and I'm not just slamming on the Democrats. Okay, I know it sounds like
I'm not.
I left the Republican Party.
I'll say the same thing about the Republicans.
I'm listed as undeclared. I consider myself an independent because I'm sickened by both parties' rhetoric, both parties' garbage.
Yeah. Well, it's madness because it's the circuitous pattern that ends up being very unsatisfactory, and none of the things that get talked about get enacted.
I was shocked when I came back to New Hampshire after 32 years, because I'm in California, and you had Green Party people in a small legislature of just 80 assemblymen.
Sure.
And I've been in other places. Vermont has multiple parties, and the progressive parties are in a coalition
you
in the
can
government.
run as an independent very easier.
400 people. I thought, there must be like 50 Green Party. The Libertarians, I remember signing a petition like 20 years or 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And then you find out I'm asked to sign one again. They says, we felt the last one was 1980 or something.
Yeah.
They have so rigged it, the two-party, and a
Absolutely.
citizen legislature of
Oh,
400
absolutely.
It's madness.
400.
It's madness.
To get
It's
on a
not what
ballot here is 10 times more difficult than in California.
It used to be.
Wow.
It used to be a
California.
3%
I'm living
rule.
proof. I just pulled it off.
Yeah, but it's
You
it's
did.
310. It's
But you had to
5/10
get over
of 1% in
1,500 people, and you have to
That's
get
right.
more than the 1,500 because you know that some
There's
of them
gonna
are
be
going
a
to get
trickle.
thrown out.
They're gonna get disqualified. Yeah.
Yeah.
There
And I mean,
always is.
I-
There's
now
always some.
I've lifted it up to the great spirit. We did our thing. We played our game.
Yep.
Now we got to wait for the umpires
And then
to give us the outcome.
Yeah.
But
He's
I'll
got
tell you something. You made a
1499
wonderful point earlier, and forgive me for just saying you because
I'm
I know
John
we've been
Hopwood,
introduced.
Notorious John Hopwood.
There's a great quote from Jon Stewart, and I like Jon Stewart a lot. I like his intellect, and I like his
Me too.
His he can be very circumspect about a lot of things.
And circumcised.
You know, and oh yeah, oh, well, whatever. I won't
You
go.
have to know
I
the
won't go
job.
there. And he
Hoppy,
said, "Look, in a
breathe.
nation that has over 8 different kinds of cans of Coke, why do we have 2 major parties that steamroll everybody else and own the game? Why?
Right.
Why?" Okay, so that's kind of where I'm coming from. Now, look, I mentioned the quote from Adam Sexton, the tweet that he put out there on the day that I filed.
Look, can I see that?
Yeah, you sure can. I'm going to read it right here.
You read it.
And that's about 7 weeks ago. Here's an interesting surprise. Former State Representative Eric Eastman, a Liberty Republican, so far as he knows, because
Oh, that's where I remember you from.
Exactly. Historically, I was just that. Just filed as a third-party candidate for Congress in New Hampshire CD1. 1,500 signatures by 9/5/18. He actually got the date wrong. It's by today.
Yeah.
And he's on the ballot. Now I got to wait for the umpires, namely the town clerks and the Secretary of State, to do their thing and let me know by the end of August whether or not I'm up there on that debate
Hold
stage.
that up
Yeah,
there
yeah.
with the camera.
Well, I certainly hope
But,
so.
So it's not, and again, it's not about me; it's about the ideas.
Yeah.
A lot of good
Congratulations on
ideas
getting a
floating around
quote
out
from
there.
Adam Sexton. You got.
He's a good man.
He's a great
he's
guy.
interviewed me before, and his predecessor, of course. He was
Yep.
a friend.
Yep.
So when you serve in the House and you're active and you got a big mouth like some of us,
I have no
people
idea what you're
notice.
talking about.
Well, I mean, I was deep in the pipeline fight.
Yeah.
You know, the pipeline they were trying to put in the southern tier.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Coming out of New York all the way across the southern tier.
Mm-hmm.
And that was going to be a big problem for a lot of people. A lot of imminent domain abuse was happening.
Yeah.
And a lot of people upset. And I'll tell you, I may have had an R after my name, but all the constituents, all the citizenry that, had torches and pitchforks and were worked up about this, every one of them, tree-hugging, environmentalist types.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's a good
we
coalition,
came
yeah.
together.
Yeah.
We came together in a common cause. So, this just goes to show you that we got to quit the team jersey thing.
Absolutely.
It's getting old.
What are the
Elizabeth
things
Roth,
that are most
remember, gets
important to
criticized for
you
getting
that
Republicans
should
voted.
you be elected to Congress you would want to tackle? Like, what are your
Well,
top 2 things
I
that
got
you
to run
really want to
upstairs
go?
to do my show. I just realized my show's about to start upstairs, so
Yeah,
I'm going
but-
to split. But I will answer your question, and that is, there's a lot of things I could say.
Yep.
But I am going to say accountability and transparency have got to be kicked up.
Absolutely
And as far as
true.
constituent
Talk about
services are concerned, one of the first things I'm going to do, and this is you've heard it here first on the airwaves here in Manchester in my district.
Exclusive.
I am
going
to wear a body cam and a microphone whenever I'm on federal property.
Wow. No kidding.
And it's going to be uploaded in real time up to the cloud so that all my constituents
keeps
can
talking,
monitor
I want a
my
job.
every move.
That's awesome.
I want to
All
do
right.
his constituent
Eric-
services.
Eric, we'll let you go. Can you just plug your show real quick, though, before
Yeah,
you go?
sure. Rock, paper, hand grenades. I'm on there with the Honorable Gary Hopper, who originated the show, of course. I had to not replace, not succeed, but desperately try to humbly follow my predecessor in the co-anchor chair.
Yep.
That would be yourself.
That's right,
sir. And
Filling a black
And where can
hole.
people find out more about your campaign and about your party?
Justice Progressives website's going to be going up real soon. I've stayed under the radar lately just because when you're not on the ballot, you don't want to jump the gun.
Yep.
So let's find out if I get on the ballot. I get on the ballot, I'll be loud and proud. You'll find me.
Yeah,
I'll be out
awesome.
there. All right.
I'll be paying attention.
Good.
You're on my radar.
All right. Brilliant.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, I got 2 candidates on
Thanks,
my
listeners.
CD1 radar
Appreciate
right
it.
now.
All right, thanks, Eric, and you're welcome. You're welcome back anytime. By the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely.
You don't need an invite. Just drop in anytime. And,
I'm jelly of his hair. It's longer than mine.
I know, right? Yes. All right, Eric Eastman leaves us, but you can watch Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades at 6 p.m. on Channel 23. And then, of course, typically on Thursday, we'll have it up on
What do you think of that?
On the IPM Nation YouTube channel. I think he's got the best hair of anybody who's been on Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades.
The party, about judicial. What did he call it? Justice
Progressives.
Justice Progressives. What did you think about that?
No, I think it's great. I'm kind of surprised.
I was surprised.
I was too.
I didn't even. Is that the same person?
And the Young Turks are involved in this.
Apparently,
he said so. Actually, I want to Google it when I go home and check it out.
That's a sore point with me because Chank, is that his name, or Sank?
Jank.
He celebrated my defeat.
Jank Uger. He did? What do you mean?
Yeah, never mind. Because he didn't understand how you
Let
get
me
two
get the
people
violin
in.
again.
Well, we are almost out of time, so we'll.
But accountability and
transparency. Yep.
Nobody talks about it. And you said, I remember talking. Why don't Republicans embrace this?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we still let Congress and the Senate pocket veto things and things never come up for a vote? People want to vote, but they never get a vote.
So I'm sitting here looking at him and says, "Well, that's the guy from Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades." Now he's talking. He's a Bernie Sanders. And then I said, "Well, that's where I recognize
Well, no, what
you
he
from."
was saying is that basically, fiscally, he's conservative, but socially, he's far more progressive than Republicans, and that is actually a common problem.
And it's actually
I used to run into that one.
And it's not as giant an ideological shift for him as it may seem, because he was always more of a libertarian.
Right.
And libertarians, I always say, if you go issue by issue, if you factor in social issues, libertarianism does intersect with liberalism just as much as with conservatism.
It does. It does. It just depends on the issue.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, we are almost out of time.
So I wasn't hallucinating or having cognitive problems. It was him.
Yes, you were not hallucinating. You are definitely there. By the way, great Boston Red Sox hat there. Love seeing that at the Moose Desk.
1975.
Love seeing the Boston Red Sox hat at the Moose Desk.
And the orange shirt. Orange is my dad's favorite color. So if he happens to, not
one of the few
what do
colors
they call
I can
that
see.
show? Orange is the new.
Orange is the new black. Is that still on?
Is that what on? Yeah.
I don't know if that's still on.
I don't know.
All right, but we got to go.
Let's not talk colors.
So thank you both, and of course thank you to Eric Eastman for coming in, as well as William Martin and Dave Ridley for calling. And if you missed any part of today's show, it will be up in just a little bit.
And the Total Serenade, that was awesome.
The what?
The Serenade, the new Matt Connarton
The
Serenade. That was
song,
awesome.
yes.
Who's Matt Connarton? Oh, I thought it was on the Matt Connington show.
Compton.
Or is it Compton, right.
Potato.
At least he can't get sued. They won't know what name the fuck.
That's a good point, yes.
Thanks to Peter and Joel.
If you missed any part of the show, it'll be up on WMNHradio.org. And that's it for now. We'll be back tomorrow. Matt Connarton, Unleashed in the afternoon. Live weekdays 4 to 6 p.m. right here on WMNH 95.3 FM. And catch y'all a little bit later. Bye, everybody.